Hey, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Glad to have you right here on what's the name of the show, Ginger?
Good Story Live.
I was just testing you. Every now and then we got to do a test, make sure.
You know, it's been a while. It's been like 6 months, something like that.
That's right. We've kicked off season 2 now, and we're trying to make sure that everything goes smoothly as we continue to interview guests and get them on the show here, because we were surprised that after season 1, people still wanted to be on the show. We found more creatives. We found more writers and musicians and actors who are like, we'd like to be on the show.
Yes, thank goodness. Google's still trying to get on the show too. She keeps piping up, man.
One of the days we'll have to interview it that shall not be named.
Thank you. Yes.
Ginger, it's nice to see you again. How is Grayson and Claire doing? How are the little children?
The children are doing well. They are 3 and 5. I'm pretty sure. Well, Grayson had already turned 5. Claire turned 3. We're getting ready to start kindergarten. We're in full summer break mode, enjoying all the summer activities, the pool, the outdoors.
Yes.
Just trying not to go crazy with 2
Speaking
kids.
of the outdoors, the outdoors is trying to come indoors in Wisconsin right now, because boy, the trees must be fornicating a lot right now. I can tell you, it is. Jesse is feeling the seasonal effects of allergies today, so I'm waiting for that Zyrtec to kick in. Hasn't quite
gotten there yet. You guys are a little behind us down here in the South.
Yeah,
it happened like months ago.
Correct. Yeah, that is true.
For you, I hate that for you.
The older I get, the more my body is attuned to allergies, which I guess is not a good thing.
Do you do a neti pot?
Oh, good Lord. What's that, Ginger?
The neti pot. You have to use distilled water. Don't use anything but distilled water, but you fill a little pot.
When you pour down your nose?
It's a little teapot. It's a little teapot. You go like this on one nostril, and then the water pours out the other nostril.
Sounds delightful.
Oh my gosh. Kevin does it almost every day.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to try that.
I tried it once, and it burns like crazy. I can't do it.
Yeah.
No, do it. It's real great.
I'm sure it wakes you up. That's what I should do before the show every week. Just like pour that in. I'll be wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go.
Yeah, then you'll be like scratching your nose the entire time.
We have a great guest today. I'm very excited about him because my lovely wife, Poe, and I were out at a restaurant a couple of weeks ago, well, more like a month ago, locally here, right here in near Brookfield, near Milwaukee, western side. And we were at this restaurant. We're sitting down, enjoying the meal, and this guy comes in with a guitar. And you're like, oh, we're going to have some live music. Now, as I'm sure you know, Ginger, that could go either way. It could be way too loud and you can't even hear yourself chew, and kind of overwhelm the meal. Or it can be very pleasant and work into the atmosphere of this was the latter. This guy was phenomenal. He provided a great ambiance to what we were enjoying. And at the end of the meal, my wife's like, you got to see if he's got a business card. You got to get him on the show. And I'm like, there's Poe,
Always looking out for you and Good
Story Live. Ginger. Just like that.
She's found us a few guests.
She has. She's a virtuoso there. Let me read a quick bio here.
Her up to book us out.
She's our guest pimp. She just goes out and finds them for us and brings them in. Our guest name is Peter Demore. He is a singer-songwriter and musician based out of Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is right here where I live, right here locally. Waukesha.
Okay.
Ginger's
what names you have in Wisconsin?
Western Wisconsin, like west of southeast Wisconsin, so like west of Milwaukee. For the people who care, I don't know. He's been compared to Dave Matthews, Peter Gabriel, and Paul McCartney, all rolled into one. So,
all people I like.
His most recent albums include The Line, Reclinal, and have received a very warm welcome both locally and across the country. So we're excited to have him on, and maybe if we coerce him, he'll even play a song for us today. I don't know. I'm not promising anything, but let's just see what happens. Let's welcome our guest, Peter Demore. Peter, how are you? Welcome to Good Story Live.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. Hi, Jesse. Hi, Ginger. Great to be here.
Good
We're
to
thrilled
have
to
you.
have you. We're
Yes.
and like I said, I hope you heard the intro that I said, because my wife and I, we saw you coming up to the microphone at the restaurant. And we're like, oh, is this guy going to be one of those like self-absorbed, way too loud, just doesn't care about the ambiance of the restaurant? And you fit in so nicely. It was just very pleasant. Is that just like your MO for live performances, or?
Well, I'm so happy to hear that, and thanks for giving it a chance. I've been playing there for a while, but after 20 years, I guess, doing this, I try to play, or when I talk to people, I'm like, I play under the conversation level so that they'll just know immediately. So it's funny you brought up the volume right away. It's kind of a thing, and I believe me, I'm very self-absorbed. I have all these toys down here that are blinking at me, and they're like, "Play with me louder, go!" So yeah.
I can imagine that that's probably a hard balance to strike when you're playing live somewhere or like at a restaurant. That balance between like what's too loud and what's too soft.
Yeah. Well, as the night goes on, it gets a little rowdier. So I always have that beacon to be like, well, your chances later. You can go crazy later.
Oh, so Peter, you've been described as an acoustical loop guitarist. Can you describe what that means for somebody like myself that has no clue?
Sure. I mean, I can definitely do more of a demo maybe later on in the show. But yeah, looping is basically a live tape recorder at your feet where you can, bang on your drum and now you have a beat and you can play that back and you can record pretty simple parts so that you have like layers to just pile up. And now you've created this structure that you can bring parts in and out of depending on the machine you have. And yeah, I just love it. It's like it brings that familiar song and then this whole like jazz element into the show.
Yeah.
Where I don't know what's going to happen, and I just love it. It keeps it interesting. It's not a recital every time I play. So
it allows you to be kind of a one-man band, because we heard stuff coming out of that guitar that we're like, there's got to be more. Somewhere he's looping in something.
Yeah. So I can definitely get more into that, but I wanted to give the gist. It's basically I have pedals at my feet that let me choose a part and go, oh, I want to stack on top of that part and play that back and then play over that. So that's really it.
So when did the music bug bite you? Because every artist, every creative we have on this program, at some point when they were young, they had a vision, they had a dream, and maybe they pursued it when they were young, maybe they ignored it and went back to it in their adulthood. What's that story like for you?
So I grew up in a pretty chaotic house with 5 other siblings, and I would often like go tinker with this tape recorder, and I just thought it was like the most magical time machine thing, even at age 5. And I was just like, look at that. It's one of those rectangular like Panasonic ones, like I just love it. So I would do that and then do like little skits and sing and whatever. But then, also my dad is a singer in Milwaukee for over 50 years. So I'm watching him with these big, powerful bands on stage, and I'm just a kid like, what's that? Just loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually started with guitar in 6th grade, played the songs they give you in the books, the real boring things that kids don't want to play at all. And I didn't stick with it. And then that was about 6th grade. And then 8th grade, I see the spectacle of a guitar player that I know of. And I'm like, who's this Eddie Van Halen guy? And he's just like blowing my mind. And I'm like, I don't want to sit around and play songs. Like, I want to do this spectacle thing. What's he doing? So that grabbed me. But I still to this day, I can't do what that guy does. But it was just kind of more the gateway. And then I was into my art and just wanted to do my own songs when I was like in high school and started playing, got an acoustic electric. And then, boy, this is weird given this like so many years in a nutshell.
I get it. Keep going.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up here. I just think it was a transition between that and I forgot my picks and my phone and my ring. Everything's right here. Okay, sorry.
No, it's good.
So I have like this whole layout in front of me today, and I'm happy to play later. But back during that time. So my dad and my brother were doing weddings and stuff. My brother's a drummer. Actually,
You have a whole family of musicians, it sounds like. My goodness.
yeah, it's cool.
Ginger was a wedding photographer for a long. That was her past life, so she knows about that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you've seen it all. You've seen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So weddings. They would come home and they'd be like, "Why, you should totally do these." And I'm like, "No, I'm doing my art. I'm doing my songs."
Yeah.
And then there was some magical meeting someday where it was like, "No, my dad actually has a spot where he can do little shows, and now we're a duo." And I'm horrible, but I just got my looper, so I want to like work this thing out. And yeah, I did that, and he gave me a chance to he was playing with like the best in Milwaukee. Now he's got his schlub kid like up there with him. It's just amazing that he gave me that opportunity. We actually still do duo shows. My dad's still singing, so it's just awesome. I'm really lucky to have a dad that was so involved in the business and taught me so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, things that I've seen some of your guests talk about on your show, where it's like you have your own thing that you're into, but you're really there for them, and you really want to work with their response. It's like a chemistry project in the moment. So if they like this Sinatra tune, oh, I have a few more Sinatra tunes for you here. And even though I'm more in a Radiohead mood right now, or a whatever.
We all, yeah.
I'm going to do that because I want to play for the people and have this gig go well. So I have these kind of two sides, and it's nice. There's this artistic kind of studio musician art side, and then there's this live side where I learned a lot of the ropes from my dad. So then it was time to do more gigs on my own, and that's a whole other show. But like, yeah, I started doing my own show, but I had all this repertoire from my dad's band. I had 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So now my competitive edge is that I have like a book. I'm old school. I have this giant binder. Most people use iPads now. I got my sign back here. It's not a digital thing. It's a.
You got to pull the stand and then twerk it and make sure it's right.
So,
but how many times, Ginger? How many times have we heard like these musical families exist, right? From father to son, or mothers and daughters, or and
I feel like every family has a branch that has that musical component to it. So like my grandfather played the drums. My dad can play the drums. My mom plays the guitar. And there are several other members that have like picked that up, but whether or not like that spark is ignited to where they then take that on, like, with you, Peter, that's a different story. But I feel like every family has that like little branch that does music at some level, some capacity, for sure.
That is so cool. Sorry, Peter, didn't mean to wrap up.
No, that's awesome. So does your mom play like songs? Does she actually have like songs that she goes to and
she used to, yeah. So she hasn't played probably, I mean, I'm in my 30s, so probably in like 20 years, something like that. She used to play for us the guitar and sing at night. So for our bedtime routine, she wouldn't do it every night, but she would do that. And then we used to vacation with other families, and my mom and one of the other guys in the group played guitar, and every once in a while they would bring out the guitars, and we would just be sitting somewhere after we had a full day of whatever we were doing, and they would just start playing. Sometimes they would be singing, but sometimes it was just playing. So I have a lot of fond memories of like just sitting around and being played to.
Awesome. Yeah. Like, so one of my favorite guitar players has this thing where he's like, if you're interested and you get down like a song, so that every time you play it, you go to your song, right?
Yes.
That's kind of how it starts, and so I was curious about your, if there's like a certain group of songs or things that when you hear that melody, you're like, oh my gosh, that's that.
Yes. So she would play, she would play from Jesus Christ Superstar. I feel like it's from Jesus Christ Superstar. It's it goes, sleep and I shall soothe you. I don't remember the name of the song, but I know the lyrics of the song. And anytime that song plays,
it's from Phantom of the Opera. No,
no, it's not, Jesse. I know
not everything's Phantom of the Opera, Jesse.
But that one, and then for whatever reason, Norwegian Wood as well is another one that my cousin used to play. And I remember there was a point where he lived with us for like 3 to 6 months, and he had his guitar and he would constantly be playing Norwegian. That was like his go-to song.
Nice. Yeah. Every show I open with a Beatles instrumental, All My Lovin', I think. I just open with that to kind of let people know, like, here's a familiar melody, like just kind of what I was
It's
asking.
a great way to set the tone for what they're about to experience. That's perfect. I remember when Paul and I were listening to you, I mean, you did a mix of originals, your own work, and then some popular jazz, rock, whatever.
Oh, man. I'm so glad you guys saw that show because
it was great.
I was trying to rehearse, basically. That show was just thrown together at the last second. I talked to the owner of the place, and I'm like, I have a lot of gigs coming up this summer. I'd like to really get on my bike here. I'm not polished at all. And I just happened to play one that was an original that you grabbed onto, as far as like, you know, that song that you had mentioned, The Interview, it's called.
Right. Yeah.
And that meant so much to me because, and your show does too, because these people that are artists or creatives sacrifice so much to put time into their art. Mm-hmm. And when they get any kind of response like that on their own thing, I mean, you could have walked up at the end and said, that one cover tune, cool. Like, you know, but you had mentioned this one and I'm like, awesome. You know, it just felt really good. So thank you for that.
Well, absolutely. And so I'm sitting there eating, I forget, it was salmon something. My wife was eating something else. And we had been into what you were doing so far. And then the song, The Interview, came up. And I turned to my wife, and I was like, oh, I like that. That's got a groove to it. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like jiving back and forth, just sitting there eating my food. Like, man, this is really good. I like, because you got into it. I mean, you were putting your whole, that was a physical thing you were putting into that song. And there was it was kind of a tight restaurant. And several times the waitress had to kind of, work herself around me because I'm just on the edge of my chair going, yeah, I like it. So, waitresses beware if you're around Jesse and Peter Demore playing. I want to ask you about your writing process before we have you play something. So like, singer-songwriters have a process from where they draw inspiration, and you obviously have some sort of aggregate that you've put together that allows you to come up with all these great tunes and the lyrics. What does that process look like for someone like you?
Awesome. This is my favorite stuff. As far as all I do, I don't really practice the guitar. I never really, I play and then stuff comes up, and I always have, in about 2003, I always had that same, I bought an old school tape recorder like I was talking about earlier. And I have a thing where a riff will come or like a melody, and I'll be like, you got to do that. And I'll know it's going, I got to do this one. So I'll put it in my phone nowadays. Back in the day, it used to be a tape recorder. Well, after a few years of doing that, I realized that I wasn't doing the work. I wasn't going back to listen to the ideas, like a writer who has some scraps of ideas that, it's like, that's the work part. The fun part is, there's a thing from space. I'll put it on record or I'll write it down. And you're like, I got to channel this. Like, it's like, that's the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
The work is like when you have to edit and cut through the fluff and keep the meat and potatoes here, and the rest is like, no, this is what this is about, and do that work and like keep chiseling. When you're not having that inspiring moment that even led you to it, you're kind of like maybe a year later, or like you're like you're looking at your stuff. So I had these tapes, and now I use my phone, and it's so funny because now what I do is I do two for every time there's an idea. I do one that is the idea, and then I'll quickly title it, and then I'll do another one. And I'll put the title and the word DESC for the description of how to do it, because
that's smart.
Well, it's like, I know for a fact I'm not going to get to stuff for a while. And it's like, my guitar might be tuned different that day, or I might be sitting weird, watching a show and just noodling. And all of a sudden I'm like, dude, like, go get that, and so I'll get the phone, and then I'll have to sit exactly the same way. And, it's like, I'll have to tell myself like, okay, you are capoing in the case of The Interview. I wrote that song almost 20 years ago. So it's really cool that I played it that night, and that was the one. But that song has a capo on it. That's this little thing. You can do the same shapes you do here, like as if you do here, but now they're up here. And yeah, so that's the kind of thing I would leave a note about, like, oh, you're on this fret and you're.
That's so smart.
Well, it's just because I know I'm not going to get to stuff for a while.
He is way more organized than I am when I write. I've got nothing. It's all like
we've talked about this, Jesse.
Paper and keeping it up here, and I'm like, I should write that down someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love that you mentioned that part of the process, because that I feel like is such a huge piece for creatives, is the excitement and the energy of when the inspiration strikes, finding a way to record it, organize it, and then come back to it. Because the coming back to it is not always the fun piece and the really starting to work with it. So I love that you identified that, okay, I've got to figure out a better way to get that piece more manageable and under control, and still be able to have fun with it once you do find the time to come back to it and sit down with it. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that said, I have these cassettes, and then I'm transferring. Well, this is before the phone time.
Yeah,
right?
I get it.
You know what that is, Ginger? A cassette?
I do. I remember having to wind it with a pencil.
Right, because the tape, it would eat it, and then you got to wheel it back in.
And then you got to wheel it back in. Yeah.
Mixtape.
So what I would use is my iTunes like pretty extensively, like in the 2000s, back in iTunes days. And my favorite feature was the ratings feature. So like if you're an author and you're doing like voice memos and stuff, and you're listening back, you can put those in your iTunes, and then you can walk around and have them and be like, oh, that's a 5-star. That's a must finish idea.
Right.
And then you can. In my case, I had my stuff on shuffle, and I'd be going on these walks. So I would go from the cassette, and I have a machine that I can transfer it to CD. And as I'm doing that, I'm titling everything. Wow. And I'm knowing in that moment, as I'm sitting, I would actually put on like Planet Earth on the TV and just like listen to these old tapes and just like look at the images on the screen and just see what was moving and what was any good. Because you're going to have a lot of garbage. You're going to have a lot of fluff. And it's just part of what goes along with it. But and then you're kind of doing like a journal too, because you're like, oh, this was last year. Like, oh, I remember that day, or like, that was a super cold day, and it was real quiet inside, and you just remember things, and it adds to the experience.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because creative people are so terribly sentimental, and we, we are, and we tie moments of creative inspiration to an event or a place or a scent or a conversation you had with someone. Yeah, and that is so true. I'm glad that you keep track of that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So I want to just finish this last little bit about the process. So because it was something that I wrote about it in the liner notes to The Line. That's this my newer record. That's this thing back here. Back in the MySpace days, I wrote this thing like, all right, yeah.
Where you could like have a song that played when people came to your profile.
Yep. And I was so excited to do one of those little journals that said, welcome to The Line, because I'm like, that's my new project. Because I keep saying this phrase in all these random songs that are from different time periods. I'm saying this. I use my voice as like an instrument when I'm just making demos and stuff. Like I don't really care about what I'm saying as much. I just want to use it like the sound of the words more. And then later I can go back and say like, oh, that sounds like I'm saying that, and then go back through that. Not every time. Sometimes I'm digging deep and saying emotional things, but like other times it's that. So in the process, I'm jumping all over here. I'm sorry. So in the process of making The Line, I had these cassettes. I'm transferring them to CD. And then from the CDs, I now have titles, and I know which ones are starred there. And I'm putting them in my iTunes, and I'm going on walks. And before I know it, I have 20 songs that I have 5 stars. And now the fun is, I can't wait to go for a walk again. It's actually motivating to go listen more than the exercise piece. To put things in order and to hear how things even sound together now that I've amassed this like, oh, here's 8 years of like the 20 best things you put together, or maybe even just the most complete things. But anyway, so that's a long way of saying that's how The Line was made. And now I do this thing in my phone, and those go right into my iTunes. I don't have to transfer anymore. I kind of miss it, to be honest, because it was like, it made me invest more time to do the cassette to CD to the iTunes thing. So that's pretty old school, but like now, it's all in my phone, and I still do the 2 versions, like, here's where you are on the guitar, and you know, and I live in a pretty chaotic house, married with 2 kids. So I'm often like running and letting my family know, like, I have to go in this room real quick. And you guys just be quiet for a second. I got to lay this down. Or I'll hear my name from the other room while I'm trying to lay something down. And I'll be like, hold on, I'm recording. So these moments are like in these recordings too. And it's like precious because of that, you know, like,
Yes, absolutely.
Earlier.
Ginger has no idea what you're talking about.
None. I have 2 kids. Mine are 3 and 5. So
Okay.
we are right in the chaos of kids.
We've been teasing we're teasing the audience for, you know, almost 30 minutes now. We really should have you perform a song.
Yes.
And before we get to some other questions. While you get kind of set up there, let me just introduce this. When I asked Peter if he'd be willing to play something for us, he was like, sure, what do you want me to play? I'll play a cover, I'll play whatever you want. And I said, well, would you be willing to play The Interview, which was like the song that you played at the restaurant? Are you equipped to play that today, Peter?
Yes, and I'm also really excited because I found this clip that I used to use before the song plays, and it's how it was written.
Nice.
I'm gonna spoil this and just say it's from an episode of Behind the Actors Studio with James Lipton.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic!
Wow.
So it just happened to be.
Love that show.
This is like 20 years ago now, okay? But like I was just getting some momentum with my own stuff.
All the Gen Z are going to be like, what the heck are these old people talking about?
They need to go on YouTube and educate themselves. It was a phenomenal show.
I agree.
So this is like you know, I'm just like in my apartment and it's just on. And I'm like, who is that? Oh yeah, that's Charlize Theron. She's gorgeous. What is she going to say for those last questions, right? Because he asks these like 1-word answer questions, right?
Yeah.
Which I wish I should throw at you guys, actually. He says, you know, what's your favorite this? What's the sound you like the best? And I'm like, she's right on. Like I got all pumped. And I like wrote this kind of like kind of happy little percussive-y thing. And I kept it. And honestly, this is I found a recording where there was like a whole other part to the song that I've taken out 20 years ago. And it's back to that ending thing that we were talking about earlier, where you just kind of, it was so much fluff at the end. I'm like, no, it's not about that. You know, you gotta, it's about this chunk of the tune. So, yeah. So I do have to just take a second to get things sounding decent here.
Go for it. You do what you need to do.
This has also been with me since that time. This is my
it's a beautiful guitar.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's an Ovation. It's one of the wider body ones where you can play acoustically and fill up the room pretty nice. But
sounds great. Sounds great on my end.
Oh, good. Well, I hope it sounds better when I do like the plug-in stuff, which is more of the decent. So we didn't sound check any of this, but
it sounds great.
Oh, good. All right, should we do this?
Yes, please.
All right, here we go. They're like, why do we get this talkative guy on the show? He just keeps talking.
You've obviously seen our program before. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, so this is called The Interview. I hope you enjoy.
What is your favorite word? Hope. What sound or noise do you love? Laughter.
Her favorite word is hope. And her favorite song is laughter. Mine too. She's real. through and through. She's beautiful. To me today. How can she stay? On Hollywood Boulevard, I've been waiting for your answer. I got the edge from the inside. From the inside. Please hold your favorite song is like mine too.
Woo! There we go.
So good. Thank you.
Peter Demore, ladies and gentlemen, the interview.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Loved
Thanks,
it.
gang. Thanks for
Thank
listening.
you so much for performing that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fun. I love this tune.
Sounded great. And Ginger, you can only imagine, like in a live setting with the actual non-internet acoustics coming through. Just like, I mean, you could feel like the some of the. I'm not musical. I don't know the lower end.
He's trying to describe. He's trying to describe and Lex.
Okay, so that I want to just mention. Sometimes I'll go see a tribute band just to go hear loud that in a room so that my chest goes like this.
Yes.
Because I know I already love it, and I'm like, it's not. Maybe this band doesn't have some of the you know, the exact same stuff as the one band I love, but it's like so many theaters now have these tribute acts that are like solid, and you're like, I'm gonna go because I love that band, and then you go and you're like, oh, they pull out that deep cut, but the whole vibration thing in the room, come on, like that's like the best. Like you could do that without even ears, like just to feel what that feels like is in your
oh yes
being.
Yeah, Paul commented, we didn't just hear that song, we felt it when we were sitting there at the table. It went right through the wood, and it was great. Thank you again. And on the cusp of that, I mean, the question, speaking of live venues, aside from the technical aspect, which everyone can kind of imagine technically what are the challenges, but like what other kind of challenges are there in performing in a venue like where I saw you, or a concert stadium, or wherever you go?
Wow, what a great question. You know, if there's a table, let's say you and your wife were sitting right in front of my speaker, the whole room is going to get a different show because I don't want to blow you away. And that's my one source of sound in that particular place you saw me. Right. So I'm going to play very gentle and different, but I kind of like that challenge too. Like, okay, I don't need to have all these dynamics. Let's see what you can do with this limitation. You know, it's like the Beatles, you know, they kind of had this limitation in their recording, and you just like, there's something so cool about that. Like, it's challenging, but you get different stuff out of it. You know, so yeah. And honestly, like, I don't, that version I just did of the song, I had a few things like ready to go, but one of them is this toy that I have. It's just silly because it's beckoning to me the whole show, and it's like, now's your moment, do it, because it's just like so tempting to press this button. But it goes from, you know, here, let me turn this back on real quick. It goes from, you know, this in a room where you're kind of classy and you're right, and then all of a sudden, I'm gonna turn this mic off. There we go. All of a sudden, it's like, you know, I got signal here. Yeah. So now instead of right, now I got this guy.
Wow. This is your moment. Do it. Do it.
You went from Paul McCartney to Led Zeppelin in one jump.
Well, it's like, it's low end, it's low synth, basically. So
that was the word I couldn't come up with. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, low synth is like ready to go anytime. So I have a loop going, and all of a sudden I lay this like extra charge into the room, but I have to be real basic with it, and I want to just go all over, but it's like, no, you just need some of that low end to color it. And then last summer I got another toy. It's this delay pedal, which allows me to, sorry, I don't know if you guys even want to know about this. I'm just like going on and on.
We love the technical aspects of creative process. This is you're on the right show for that.
Yes, you're on the right show.
Okay. So this thing I have, like, you know, of course, certain guitarists that I love that use the like this volume swell thing where it's like, and it's like if I'm in the middle of a loop and it's just like this peaceful kind of thing, like you can just do that, and it just sets. It's just such a cool. It's almost like a whole other instrument that I get to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this little delay thing is my new favorite. This is from last summer, and it added so much to the show. Right, but depending on what song I'm playing, now it has a thing where if let's say that was that tempo, like now all of a sudden I'm in something a lot quicker, and I hit the pedal again, I hold it, and now we're going. Now I can go. Now I can tell this pedal like tap 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 tap. Now I'm in this tempo. I don't know if that was showing it enough. Maybe if I go slower, it'll be better. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now it's gonna go real slow. Right? So just so fun to color with that thing, because any jam that I'm in, any loop that I'm in, it's called tap tempo. You can do that with that pedal, and it's just like, are you kidding me? That thing is portable for any loop I do. So yeah, super fun. And then of course the last one I have, I only have 4. A lot of guitarists have like a ton of stuff. I have 4. The last one is just this. You know, just rocking stuff. So
I instantly heard Jesse's Girl. I don't think that's what you were playing, but that sound reminds me of Jesse's Girl.
You're right on, and I didn't want to get you guys any copyright things flagged on your show.
Yeah.
I'd be breaking into all kinds of riffs right now otherwise. But yeah,
Oh man,
Thanks for listening to all that. I know that was a lot.
The level of coordination I can't even comprehend that it takes to be able to do what you and other musicians, like, you're moving, every appendage is moving differently, right? It's like can you rub your stomach and tap your head, but then also add something with your feet? It's amazing.
It's a clown show. Yeah, it's a total yeah.
But going back to like the live venue piece, like we all have those moments in those shows. I'm sure you have those shows where, like when you were playing at the restaurant in Jesse, where everything just feels good and you walk away and you're like, yeah, that's awesome. But I'm curious, do you have any that stick out in your mind of that maybe didn't go exactly how you wanted? They weren't maybe total bombs, but it was
every time. Yeah.
an instance where you walked away with some sort of learning moment or some sort of something that you then carried on into other shows.
Yeah, okay. So in the car on the way home, I'm like, oh, I played a good Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel today. How did I do a good one after 10 years? What was different about it? So there's that kind of lesson learning where I know it was like noticeably a good version. And I'm like, okay, I broke some ground on that tonight. What was it? Oh, it was just faster. Oh, cool. And I'll figure that out. But the other piece is like what you're saying, where, yeah, I'll drive myself crazy because, oh, that's right, it's spring. Why are you trying to sing like Steve Perry from Journey in the spring? Like, you got to wait till your vocal cords are a little more exercised at this point,
Like the spirit moved you. That's why.
I was at an anniversary event. I do a lot of corporate events and things like that, but this was like a anniversary for these parents, and their friends were all older age. So I'm breaking out all my 40s and 50s and 60s tunes. Nice. And then at the end of the night, the younger people were hanging out and like, come on, rock out, dude. We've seen you rock out. Come on. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm doing all these like, Journey and like just more like sing along type of things. And like, why was I saying that? Oh, because that was kind of like recently, and I'm still summer. As soon as I get warmed up in summer, it's the best. It's kind of like you're on your 5th chapter of your book, and you just know, like, I got some momentum. This is great. My faculties are better. Things are isn't that great how that sits like that? Oh, I'm going to use that one today. And you just kind of, you get into it. I did want to ask you about your book and how like going from the germ of the idea to I'm at this, like, I don't know how long it took you to do that, but man, I'm talking like 7 years for this, music thing. And so
8 years.
Oh, nice. Okay. You relate. Got me beat too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think you probably were like at it the whole time. I gave up so many times. It was like, forget it. Not going to happen. No, that's very kind of you. I appreciate you asking that. It's funny because you say by the 5th chapter, I get momentum and I feel like I know what I'm doing. Mine was more like the 12th chapter it took, but yeah, it kicked in at some point. And yeah, it was a project it was an idea that started as 2 stories actually. And I wrote some in one book and then put it aside and wrote some in another. It took me a couple of years to realize these are the same story and they need to be merged together.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay.
So that, of course, was a whole nother process. But yeah, that book from start to finish, because there was a lot of life changes and just interruptions, I'm trying to be much more of a disciplined writer now that I'm published and I'm working on my next book. Yeah, 8 years start to finish. But the version that got published, really more like 2 years, because I finally knew what I was doing. So yeah.
Awesome.
Gained that momentum.
Yeah.
Get that stride.
Gained something. I don't know.
I get it.
So you release it and you do the promo stuff, right?
Yes.
And my thing is, and this is, this has to be like more Ginger's expertise, but like the whole, like every musician now is talking about, you got to be on TikTok and you got to do this and you got to do that. And it's like you spend all this time making the thing that suddenly you're supposed to be like a marketer, and in order to let people know about it, like you have to. And I'm just, that's honestly, like, I haven't done enough of that, which is like one of the reasons I'm on your show. Like, oh my gosh, someone like actually wants to talk about my art, that just is like, I want it to at least engage one new fan that listens to it or checks it out. But so like when like in the example of like Jesse releasing his book or any project that you do, you're going to have all this like fuel going in and being like, oh, I totally know how this engagement works and how to edit the thing that's going to be like the nugget that gets people's like, you know, oh, now I need to go check it out, you know. And that's like such a weird thing for our generation right now, you know.
It is that, and you know, the thing with, yes, you've built a thing, right? You, Jesse, you have your music as well. It's like you build the thing and then you have to let people know about it. Like that's part of the process. But I think we let and that's really about volume. Truthfully, like marketing is all about volume. It's less about the one nugget that's going to like really land and run and really get the word out there. To me, it's really about volume, sharing the process. If the show Dirty Jobs taught us anything, it's that people want to see the process for how things are done. It doesn't really matter what it is. It could be, you know, gosh, there were so many crazy episodes of that show. If you ever watched Dirty Jobs. But people are just interested in the process. And so if you share the process along the journey, then when you have something then to share that you're like, ooh, I really want to push that out, it becomes easier.
Yeah. Oh, you're reminding me of the 38 final laps that you don't expect at the end of something. And I imagine they do a lot of that in the show where they think they're done or they think they're, I mean, I went through like 5, when you're done with the project, you do 5 masters of the thing. Like you're like, okay, the mastering is done. I had to go through 5 more. There was a little noise that was happening in one of the songs and we had to like fix it. Anyway, sorry. I just noticed that is probably a really intriguing part, like the process. So you're on your like draft, you're on your, you know, you think you're on your last lap and then you're like, if someone would whisper in your ear, like, no, dude, you have another month and a half to like push and grind. And you would just be devastated. Like, and that's like crazy fortitude to like get your stuff done. And so when Jesse talks about,
believe that.
Yeah, like you're talking about sporadically doing a project. And I was the same way. I tried to like film a lot of the takes. I didn't get all of them. And I'm happy I have that. But honestly, the grind was at the very end when it's like, oh, you're on your, how many graphic artists did I use for this thing? Like, I'm really proud of the booklet and like, you know, like sorry, this is the layout. This is like all these like different art pieces that we did. And like,
it's beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah. So like to get it to that point, like, and just be like, no, you're not just the guy on the couch organizing your songs. Like now you're the guy who has to do the final write off on something that you're just not, it's not sitting well yet. And you've got to keep grinding. You've got to do the next lap. And you're just like, all right, I've come this far. And meanwhile, you're like, hey family, I got, you know, it's just like bonkers how much you go through. So a lot wrapped up there, but like, it's amazing. I'm sure now I want to check out that show because the fortitude that it takes to push through and like
Dirty Jobs.
Yeah. I mean, like what was like in like one that like threw you for a loop in that sense? Like was there one?
Micro. I don't have a specific memory of a show, but I mean, he would do all of these blue collar jobs, right?
Yeah.
The jobs that you have. I feel like you have to know where this is. You might not remember it, and it might not be right here. But Micro, I feel like that was the name of the show, Dirty Jobs. He would just do all of these blue collar jobs, the jobs that are in no way, shape, or form glamorous. Like he is knee deep in sewage somewhere, right? And I mean, has America captivated for 30 minutes or however long the program is.
For a brief moment, we realized how much we rely on these people, you know, for infrastructure and for day-to-day utilities and things like that, and we just take them for granted. I have long,
but when it comes,
I was just gonna on the back of what Peter said. I think you'd agree with this, Ginger. I don't think any group of people are more resilient than creatives because we face failure and rejection every day, like every single day. And maybe salespeople, but you know, salespeople and creatives, the two highest, and you gotta bounce back because no one's pushing you to make another song, Peter, or me to write another book. Really, it's the internal drive saying this needs to exist, and and that gets you out of bed in the morning and says, "Hop to it," you know.
Well, I'm never doing it the way I did it again. I know that. Like, I'm sure your next book, you're like, oh, dude, I refined this process down.
It's getting easier. Yes, it is.
Yeah. How do you like, speaking of
Yeah, go ahead.
criticism, right? And this is something that we talk to all of the creatives about, because criticism, like Jesse said, is a huge part, right? That the iterative process of creating. How do you handle criticism as a writer, as a performer nowadays?
I can't answer that honestly, because I don't get a ton of it. It's, you know, I'm kind of on my little island, and I'm happy that it's kind of like, I mean, in the sense of criticism alone, I've had a few write-ups and things, and they've been pretty complimentary, which is nice. Now, then, you know, honestly, like, the difference would be to have someone be like, hey, check this out, and then be enthusiastic, and then like not hear from them, or like, you know, think like, oh, and you know, it's like, I've had a few people that have like released artistic things, and it requires the other person that is like how can I say this? I'm not being very articulate. Like, if they don't really, it's like, oh, are they not telling me about their experience? I remember talking with them, and I'm like, oh, I haven't heard from them. It's like, oh, that's the thing that bothers me. Like, oh, are they not telling me about their experience because
they get flaky?
Yeah, they just, or like in your case with a book, like, that's a little more proactive than just pressing play on a CD player. You know, they have to give it time, and they have to like, and for me, like I want to order your book. I feel curious about the genre, your process, everything.
We live close, so I'll sign it for you when we see you next time.
Awesome.
So that'll be fine. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I mean, that's a genre I'm excited about, and like, it's enough, even, you know, but now it's like, oh, you know, there's that pathos, like, oh, I feel like I know this guy and his process a little more. And now I'm like curious, and that's going to drive my read. You know, that's
why stories are so important. The creative stories and the stories of how people create are very important. That's one of the reasons why we do this show, because we saw the story behind the art is a huge driver for why people pick up a book or listen to an album or buy a piece of artwork or watch an actor that they love. They love the process and the story behind it. We're getting a little short on time, so I just want to ask the last question before we wrap up today, which is, we always ask this of every creative on the show. If you've ever watched Good Story Live, everyone gets this question. What piece of advice would you give an aspiring Peter Demore mini who's out there maybe writing their first song, or thinking about it, or just learning to play the guitar, or wants to do what you're doing one day? What piece of advice would you give them?
Awesome. Yeah, it's the goal of what brought you there in the first place is just the joy of music itself. You know, it's not about a result of any kind, or like, my kids are like, Dad, you're going to be on a show? Are you famous? Are you, my 5-year-old daughter asked me if I'm rich last night, because I'm going to be on this.
Oh, that's so cute.
Are you rich?
Are we rich?
We set the wrong expectation for him, I think. Yeah. Sorry about that, Peter. We have made no one rich. So
it's just like, that's where her brain goes, because she's watching, like, you know, one of the Idol shows, or, you know, something like that. It's like, okay, no, come here. And so I actually, that, you know, like a couple weeks ago, I kind of know my kids think this, like, oh, Dad's playing a gig, like, it's like this weird, like, famey thing that they want. And my advice to anyone that's creative is like, you're into it because you feel a flow that you don't feel with anything else. You're curious about it. You're creative in general. Like, I would love to take on other art forms. But like, so I'll sit my kids down and I'll show them like one of the songs, and I'll be like, check this out. And I'll sing it with them, and then we'll be done. And I'll be like, oh, thanks for singing that with me. And just be like, that's what it's about. You know, like, it's like, we harmonized on that one part, and like, the joy of music itself, the joy of the art that you're creating itself, and the connection that results is like a reward of it. It's definitely, it can be addictive, especially in the social media time. But I think that like, the joy of the art itself, I'm being redundant now, but like, that's
the falling in love with the process is huge, right? And not necessarily the goal or the end thing that you're trying to create. Because then the joy of what you create is so fleeting, because once you've created it, that joy and that moment is gone. But if you fall in love with the process, which sounds like what you're describing, just the joy of doing the thing, being creative, that's what sustains you and kind of keeps you going. Absolutely.
Well, I'm sure, like, thank you for saying that, because, like, if you're a fan of, like, let's say certain types of writing and you check it out and there's no effort there, you can read that stuff and just go. It doesn't require, if I'm reading a biography of an artist I like, I'm just going to go and it's not even going to be like other topics take me a while. Like I have to, take time. But like when I made the records and stuff, like I made this in 06. This is the one that has the interview on it. You can stream it, all that stuff. When I made that, I was like, when I'm 80, I want to love this thing. So I was really hard on myself. I was really picky. I wanted to make something that I could be like, here are great grandkids. Like, like I think I want to feel proud of this later. This is not something I schlock together. If you're going to do it your best and do it out of love for it, Absolutely.
Amen to that. I agree wholeheartedly 100%. I think excellent things deserve to exist. And the longer it takes to simmer and the more blood, sweat, and tears you put into it, the more people tend to recognize that this is something of very high quality that has a piece of someone's soul in it. It's I big fan of that. And your music obviously is among those in that category. Peter, it's been so fun to have you on the program. We'll link to everything in the channel, of course. Where can people follow you?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's been such an honor. Thank you for doing this. So they can find me. I have a what do you call it? It's peterdemore.com. It's my name without the apostrophe. It's like it's basically my link tree that goes to all my stuff. So my Facebook page, my YouTube page.
Perfect.
Oh, if you're watching this, thanks for tuning in this long. And I tried to I forgot half the things I wanted to tell you, but it's like I have a list on my YouTube page of all the shows I did during the quarantine, and I did 24 shows, no repeats. So it's like my whole songbook.
Wow.
I did 2 shows a week, 45 minutes. My wife took the kids in the car so I could be loud in the house. And like, it was like, I was really, really proud of it when it was done. We did a big finale for it, but there's some like theme nights and stuff. But the reason I'm saying all that, you asked me something prior. Oh, the pages. So the YouTube has that. There's also a rooftop show. That's kind of hard to find because, YouTube has a live section. It's not just in my videos. So if you go to my live section, last September, we did a rooftop show.
Oh, nice.
A ton of originals. I did a bunch of new stuff that I haven't touched since then. I got to get back to it. So please check that out. My Facebook page is facebook.com/Peter Demore Music, all as one word. And that'll all be on the links. And
yes, I will put all of that stuff in the description of the show on the YouTube page, as well as over on goodstorylive.com. So we will absolutely make sure that people get a chance to hear you, Peter, because you do some lovely stuff. I took a listen before we hopped on the interview today.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
The interview where we played the interview. So
where we played the interview.
Exactly.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We've so enjoyed talking to you.
And Peter, we'll have you back. We'll have you back again, and you can play some more stuff for us. So.
This is season 2, right? Congrats on season
2.
No one can believe we made it this far. So here we are.
This is is it going to be called Better Story Live? Does it go better?
Greatly improved Story Live. I love it. Yes.
That'll be the joke. Better Story Live.
That remains to be seen how the season goes.
Yeah.
Well, you have to get rid of this episode, then it'll be better. Because
No, you are great.
I'm so grateful.
You made history on Good Story Live. We've never had someone perform music live for us on this program before. So you are the first. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, thank you both. I'd love to do it again for you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's really engaging, and I hope you guys had fun.
Oh, we did. We'll have you back soon. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Peter Demore, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Go to goodstorylive.com. All the links will be there. You can stream his music on Apple Music and however Spotify.
Spotify.
Go to YouTube. Ginger, this has been fun. We're up against the clock. We got to go. We will. I don't know what guest we have next week. I know we have a guest, so
somebody will be in the chair.
And we'll look forward to having them on the show.
Absolutely.
Ginger, it's been fun. We'll talk to you next week. All right.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.